kept on wanting to yell out, "Time for din-dins!" Hi guys, I just watched Get Out and let me tell you, it was so much fun. The opening scene was one continuous shot and it was really creepy, but it was funny at the same time, and that really set the tone and the pace for the whole movie. This is the type of movie that you really have to pay attention to the dialogue, which was very great. It was realistic, but it was also very meaningful. And what I mean by that is a lot of times in movies you have dialogue that's just there to be there, basically. It doesn't have anything to do with anything, it's just there. Well, maybe it might be used to establish the characters or something, but with this, a lot of the dialogue might seem inane, like someone might be telling a story or talking about something, but it actually comes back around. It pertains to something else within the body of the story, so I really like that. This is a mystery suspense thriller, not a horror movie, which is different. There are little clues that are dropped along the way throughout the whole movie. I would describe this kind of like if you're watching a M. Night Shyamalan type movie or some Alfred Hitchcock type movie. I might be the only person that's probably gonna say this, but I saw a little tiny glimmer of Stanley Kubrick in there too, but I'm just saying. This movie explores covert racism as opposed to overt racism. What I mean by that is a lot of people, when they think of racism, they think of the more overt racism, you know, the I'm gonna wear a Confederate flag or tattoo an SS on my hand and tell people to go back to Africa type of racism. This is not about that. This is more about the more subtle, covert racism that goes on a lot of times in the Northeast. I don't know about the Northwest, but I grew up in the Northeast and Southern New England, and this is the type of thing that happens. The difference between someone yelling at you, "Go back to your country," and someone assuming that because you're in a suburban school, you were bussed in from the city. True story, I'm from Connecticut and I did my freshman year of high school at South Windsor High School, and some of the black students that went to South Windsor High School were bussed in from Hartford, and a lot of times it was assumed that I was also bussed in from Hartford, although I actually did live in South Windsor. So that type of thing does happen. Speaking of Connecticut, they got the feel of Southern New England. I don't know if that's what they were going for. Well, I kind of feel like that is what they were going for because they said they drove out from the city. It could possibly have been Jersey, could possibly have been upstate New York, but it really made me feel like Connecticut. The only thing they left out was the croquet. We used to play badminton and croquet at my maternal grandmother's picnics. They had the badminton there. Didn't see any croquet. The picnic guests felt so real. Even if it was in a slightly exaggerated way, I have met people like that at art gallery openings and other events that they would never in a million years ever think that they were racist, but somehow they have to bring up in conversation that they volunteered at some South American country because they think that's where you're from. One more example of that. I used to work for Vineyard Vines as an assistant technical designer, and it was in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I had a coworker actually start a conversation with me by saying, "Hey, you like Will Smith, right?" I know that that was an attempt to relate to me, but it felt like they just thought of the first black person that came to mind and said, "Oh, I'll just mention this person," and I'm sure, you know, because they all know each other. Anyways, it's that type of thing. Kudos to Jordan Peele for including those type of things. He really explored that uncanny valley between people being overly nice to you and kind of exoticizing you or turning you into an object or tokenizing you, so to speak. He really captured that feeling of what that feels like to the person that is being exotified. It's especially awesome because as a biracial male, he has a dual perspective that he uses to great effectiveness. There's so much more that I want to say about this movie, but I don't want to get into spoiler territory. To recap, there was a great balance between suspense and humor. The acting was excellent. My favorite performance was the no lady that everyone saw in the trailer. She did an amazing job. A lot of her acting had to do with her body language and her facial expression more so than line reading. And even in that particular no scene, she had to cry and laugh at the same time and express two separate emotions. There's a reason why she's expressing two separate emotions simultaneously, but I can't tell you because that's a spoiler, but she did an awesome job in conveying that. All the actors had strong performances. I can't say there was any weak actors at all. This was a really good departure for some of these actors because I had seen them previously in comedies. The mother was in 40-Year-Old Virgin. The father was in Cabin in the Woods, which is a horror comedy. There's a character, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he stars in Atlanta. And there's also a character who was the stapler guy in Office Space, which makes perfect sense since Jordan Peele has worked in comedy for so many years. So I'm sure a lot of his connections and the people that he's worked with before would be actors that have been in comedy movies. So this was a great way to let them show that, hey, we can do other things besides comedy. The writing was really strong. In a lot of horror movies, there's always that moment where they take the express train to Stupidville. That did not happen in this movie at all. There was no characters that committed any random acts of stupid. The characters actually conducted themselves in an intelligent way. No one did the usual horror tropes that make you go, why did you just do that? The soundtrack and the score were also really good. I was happy to hear Childish Gambino's music played in this movie. The score was very effective, and for me, it worked really great because I saw this in the Dolby Theater, which has the speakers in the seats that kind of vibrate a little bit, so it worked so well. Side rant, when I went to go see John Wick, they put it in 2 small theaters and put 50 Shades of Stupid in the Dolby Theater. Why? Why do you need the Dolby Theater for that? The Dolby Theater is for action, for fantasy, for sci-fi movies, for Kong Skull Island. That goes in Dolby, not 50 Shades of fuckery. And then, speaking of stereotypes, when me and my sister went up to the box office, the attendant looked at us and said, oh, 2 for 50 Shades of... No! No. I wish I could do it as well as that lady. I wanted to see 50 Shades of asses getting kicked. I wanted to see 50 Shades of people getting shot in the face. He killed 3 men with a pencil. A fucking pencil! Anyway, go and see Get Out. I want to go and watch it again. This is the type of movie that I really think is going to hold up well on repeated watching. I feel like this is going to be that next movie that always trends on Twitter every time that it's on television, like how Jeepers Creepers, no matter how many times they play Jeepers Creepers, every single time they play it on the television, it's trending on Twitter. I feel like Get Out is going to be that type of movie too. Time for din-dins.